elderly black veteran, insulted and humiliated by racist cop, not knowing who he is. Welcome, dear viewers, to a story that will grip your heart, test your sense of justice, and keep you on the edge of your seat. Today, we explore the tale of an elderly black veteran, a proud patriot who has served his country with dignity and courage, only to be met with disrespect and bigotry by a prejudiced police officer. Little did this officer know the honorable history and fortitude of the man he sought to demean. Step into a world of unexpected twists, hidden truths, and shocking revelations that will take you from quiet suburban streets to corridors of power. Hold on tight. This is a story where the truth will not remain hidden for long. Before we dive in, if you're new here, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss an update. If you're excited about this story, let us know. If you enjoyed the video, press 1. If not, press O. Your feedback really inspires me to gather more uplifting and meaningful stories. Lincoln Link Whitaker walked slowly across the parking lot of a small convenience store on the outskirts of Charleston, South Carolina, adjusting the brim of his well-worn Vietnam veteran ball cap. White letters spelled out Vietnam veteran across the front, with small emblems from the U.S. Army embroidered on the sides. Those emblems weren't merely decorations, they were testaments to the decades Link had given in service to his country. At 72 years old, his hands still carried the marks of old scars. His skin was tanned from a lifetime outdoors, and beneath his kind, unassuming gaze lay a reservoir of discipline and courage. He had stopped at a Speedway gas station on Highway 17 to fill up his old Ford F-150, its dusty surface telling stories of countless cross-country adventures. Link sometimes visited the local VA hospital to keep up with appointments and check on friends. Today had started as any routine day might, with a quick grocery trip and a plan to meet his granddaughter later at Joe Riley Park for a minor league baseball game. The early morning sun felt comforting on his shoulders as he stretched, thinking about the upcoming meeting with an old comrade from his time in the Army. His mind drifted back to a memory of his days at Fort Benning, Georgia, where the rigors of basic training had introduced him to the reality of military life. He remembered how his drill sergeant, a fierce man named Baker, would bark orders, praising those who met his standard of discipline and pushing them to become better soldiers. Link had lived through the thick of combat in Vietnam, days of blazing heat, nights of uncertainty, and the profound camaraderie that bound them all. His experiences had shaped him into a resilient man, quick to forgive yet unwavering in his pride for his service and the bond he held with fellow veterans. Clutching a black cane, a recent necessity after a hip injury, Link walked toward the gas station door. As he entered, he noticed a tall, broad-shouldered police officer stepping outside. The officer's uniform bore the name Sims on the pocket, and his expression was pinched with annoyance, as though the world was perpetually beneath him. It was not the first time Link had encountered a cop who bore that air, but something about Officer Sims felt particularly cold. Before Link could offer a polite nod, Sims passed by without so much as a glance, though Link felt those eyes flick over him dismissively. Moments later, as Link grabbed a bottle of sweet tea from the refrigerated section, he heard a commotion near the register. A young cashier was stammering apologies, while Officer Sims berated him over a minor issue, a scanner error that required a manager's help. Link watched, concern knitting his brows together. Even from a distance, he could hear the clipped tone of the officer's voice, dripping with condescension. It stirred an unease inside him, an abiding sense of wrong that demanded he step in, but he decided to wait. The last thing he wanted was to escalate the situation by interfering uninvited. Yet as he approached the checkout, Link found himself in the officer's line of sight. The moment Sims saw him, something dark and judgmental flashed across his features. An unspoken tension crackled between them. Link felt it immediately and realized that, for reasons unknown, the officer had decided to cast him in a negative light. Paying for his items and giving the cashier a supportive glance, Link could sense the officer watching him like a hawk. The feeling was hauntingly reminiscent of certain experiences he had faced in the 1960s and 1970s, moments where a uniformed authority bristled with an unspoken hostility, fueled by prejudice. Little did Officer Sims know that the man before him was a decorated soldier, respected and beloved throughout the community, and acquainted with people in powerful circles. Fate was about to weave a tapestry that would unravel both men's hidden sides, unleashing unimaginable consequences. But, for now, the morning remained silent, with simmering tension promising to boil over soon. As Link emerged from the convenience store, he felt relief to be out in the open air again. The uncomfortable tension around Officer Sims still clung to him like a bitter aftertaste. He couldn't quite shake. He brushed it off as a passing encounter. After all, not every authority figure was out to cause trouble. He had learned that, over the years, caution and humility often paved the path to the least resistance. Yet that day, fate had other plans. By the time Link made it to his truck, he noticed the same police cruiser parked nearby, engine running. Officer Sims was standing at the driver's side window, conferring with someone on the radio. The officer kept shooting glances at Link, as though waiting for an excuse to pounce. Instinct told Link to keep calm. He placed his groceries in the passenger seat and carefully climbed into the driver's seat, mindful of his hip. The engine coughed to life beneath him, and he pulled away from the gas pump. It was only when he edged onto the highway that he realized Sims had swung his cruiser behind him. For a fleeting moment, Link thought, surely this is a coincidence. But that hope evaporated when the red and blue lights lit up his rearview mirror. A sharp sigh escaped his lips. He double-checked his seatbelt, turned on his indicator, and pulled off onto the shoulder, gravel crunching beneath his tires. Officer Sims strolled up with deliberate slowness. To anyone on the outside, he might appear calm, but Link saw a certain swagger that implied confidence at best or arrogance at worst. The cop's reflection in the side mirror revealed a sneer tightening his face. "License, registration, and proof of insurance," the officer demanded, his voice clipped. Link obliged at once, retrieving his wallet and the battered black folder that contained his documents. The officer's gaze flicked over the insignia on Link's cap, but seemed to hold no respect. Without explanation, Sims disappeared to his cruiser to run the information. Cars roared by, shaking Link's truck and rattling his nerves. Tension pulled the air taut, and minutes ticked by slowly. Eventually, Sims returned, but before handing back the documents, he launched into a monologue about an alleged broken taillight. "Officer," Link began politely, "I just had this truck serviced at a Ford dealership in North Charleston. They checked everything, including the lights. Are you calling me a liar?" Sims snapped, stepping closer to the open window. The smell of stale coffee and cheap cologne filled Link's nostrils. "I'm telling you, your taillight is out." Link's mind whirled. He had used the signals earlier that morning, and they'd worked fine. Still, he decided to remain calm. "No, sir, I'm not. I'm just explaining that it should be in working order." "I'll decide what's in working order," Sims retorted, his voice rising with each syllable. "Step out of the vehicle." A hush fell in Link's chest. This was the moment he dreaded. He wasn't afraid, per se. Years of army training had taught him to remain cool, but he knew the precariousness of the situation. An angry officer on a power trip was never a good sign, especially for a lone black man on a deserted stretch of highway. He gently pushed the door open, placing both hands where Sims could see them. "Of course, officer." His joints complained, and he leaned on the cane. As he made his way to the back of the truck, Sims circled him, eyes narrowed. With a flourish, the officer pointed at the taillight. Link took one look. It shone bright red the moment he pressed the brake. No damage, no defect. But as soon as Link opened his mouth to point that out, Sims scoffed. "Don't move," he barked, fiddling with something in his belt. A wave of anger flashed across the officer's face, as if Link's calm compliance only infuriated him more. Passing traffic slowed, curious to see the old man standing by the roadside with an officer looming close. Link's heart thudded, but he stood steady, quiet, letting the policeman run the show. He knew there was a line between self-defense and defiance. One misstep, and events could turn tragic. The memory of those who had lost their lives in traffic, stops under questionable circumstances, weighed heavily on him. Before Link could form another word, a second police cruiser pulled up, lights flashing. Another officer, this one a woman with neatly tied back hair, stepped out, looking somewhat uncertain. She glanced between Sims and Link, reading the tension in the air. Something in her posture spoke of unease. Perhaps she'd experienced Sims' brand of policing before. Yet the drama was only beginning, and the day would not be satisfied with mere inconvenience. Unbeknownst to both Link and the officers, more than one set of eyes was watching, including a passing driver armed with a phone camera. And behind the curtain of everyday life, deeper manipulations were stirring, ones that would soon unfold, revealing secrets neither the veteran nor the cop could imagine. The atmosphere crackled with tension as Officer Sims ordered Link to stand by the second cruiser. The female officer, whose nameplate read Hernandez, hovered nearby, as though trying to gauge the nature of the situation. Link offered her a polite nod, trying to convey he posed no threat. She returned the gesture, but kept her eyes on Sims, who was rifling through the bed of Link's truck without permission. "Hey," Link ventured calmly, "I don't mean any disrespect, but I didn't consent to a search." Sims shot him a withering look. "Maybe I have probable cause," he hissed, loud enough for Officer Hernandez to hear. She tensed. "Found anything suspicious yet?" she asked, her tone carefully neutral. She seemed torn between supporting her partner and abiding by the protocol she'd sworn to uphold. Sims kept digging, rummaging past an old army duffel bag, a folded American flag Link sometimes displayed at special events, and a small kit of personal tools. Link's heart clenched as the officer handled the American flag roughly, nearly tossing it aside. "That flag is sacred," Link said quietly. "Please be careful." Sims pretended not to hear him. Meanwhile, Hernandez's eyes flickered with concern. She approached, glancing at the taillight. "It's functioning fine, Officer Sims," she said, tapping it lightly. "You sure this is?" Sims whipped around, his face aflame. "You questioning me, Hernandez?" She cleared her throat. "No, sir. Just, then keep watch," he snapped, pointing at Link. "Don't let him move." Link stared at the passing traffic with a sinking feeling in his gut. The sun beat down relentlessly, and sweat gathered at his temples. But a deeper chill ran through him at the sight of Officer Sims' expression. It was the look of someone eager for a confrontation. Link recognized it from distant days in the field, where enemies would glare at each other across no man's land, waiting for a spark. Out of the corner of his eye, Link noticed a silver Toyota Camry slow down. The driver, a woman in her 30s, lifted a phone, clearly recording. She shot Link a sympathetic look as she passed. That fleeting connection, that silent solidarity, braced Link's spirit. He was not entirely alone. Sims concluded his rummaging, appearing disappointed at finding nothing incriminating. He marched up to Link and stood uncomfortably close, overshadowing the veteran with his height. "You got a problem with me, old man?" Link exhaled, controlling his temper with practiced discipline. "No, officer. I have no problem at all. I've done nothing wrong. Sims leaned in, his voice dropping to a venomous whisper. That's where you're mistaken. In that moment, from behind the convenience store, an SUV peeled onto the highway. Its driver recognized Link's truck and slowed, pulling off behind the two cruisers. Out stepped a man in a crisp shirt and tie, James Robertson, a local attorney with ties to the ACLU and a longtime friend of Link's from the American Legion in downtown Charleston. He approached calmly, raising a hand in greeting to Officer Hernandez, who looked relieved to see him. James asked politely what the issue was, glancing between Link and the officers. Before Link could speak, Sims turned to James. "Who are you?" "James Robertson," the attorney replied. "Is there a problem here? Mr. Whitaker is a friend of mine." Sims bristled, as though the mere idea of an outsider stepping in threatened his authority. "Stay out of this," he growled, "or I'll have you obstructing police business." James stood his ground. "I'm simply observing. I have every right to stand here." What might have been a routine traffic stop was morphing into something more sinister. The day's events seemed poised to careen into a darkness no one expected. But the embers of fate were still only just starting to smolder, and unseen hands would fan those flames until they roared into an inferno that would engulf them all, police, veteran, and witnesses alike. Officer Hernandez cleared her throat, trying to temper the tension. "Sims, do you need backup? Maybe we can call the supervisor." There was an undertone in her voice that suggested she was seeking a cooler head to intervene. Sims shot her a fierce, almost incredulous glare, as though the idea of requiring help was an affront to his authority. "The supervisor?" He spat back. "Why would we need that? We have a suspicious vehicle, a suspect who's refusing to cooperate." "He's not refusing," Hernandez countered quietly. "He's been compliant." Sims ignored her. His brash posture suggested a storm was brewing within him. Meanwhile, James Robertson tried to calm the waters. "Officer, if Mr. Whitaker's taillight is working, perhaps we can conclude the stop and move on," he suggested diplomatically. "No harm, no foul," Sims exhaled sharply, spinning to confront Link again. "You think you can waltz around, wearing that army cap, expecting special treatment? Well, not on my watch." Link's jaw tightened, and Officer Hernandez's face fell. She realized precisely what brand of trouble this encounter could become. "I don't expect special treatment," Link said, his voice steady. "I'm just a citizen on his way home." Sims took a step closer, voice dropping to a low, threatening register. "If I were you, I'd think carefully about how I speak to me." He then nodded toward Hernandez, who sighed and returned to her cruiser to verify Link's records once more, an action that was borderline repetitive. James rubbed his temples in frustration, but continued to hold his peace. Behind them, the road bustled with midday traffic. A few people slowed to watch or record. Among them was a local news channel's freelance photographer who recognized James Robertson from local press conferences. He pulled over, camera in hand. Nothing escaped his lens. Officer Sims' aggressive body language, Link's calm stance, James's concerned expressions, and the anxious look on Hernandez's face. The footage, unbeknownst to the participants, was set to become the seed of a much larger conflagration. At length, Hernandez emerged from her cruiser, trotting over to whisper something in Sims' ear. He stiffened, nodded curtly, and then snarled, "Fine, I'll write him up for the taillight. That'll teach him to watch his mouth." James's brows furrowed. "You can't issue a citation for a non-existent issue." Sims turned, a smirk lining his face. "I can do whatever I see fit." In that moment, a wave of anger flared within Link. He was used to difficulty. He had grown up in a segregated era, faced unimaginable horrors in Vietnam. and endured countless microaggressions in civilian life. But something about this felt like a direct slap in the face to everything he'd fought for, the very freedoms he had risked his life defending. "Officer," Link said firmly, "I respect your job, but this is harassment." Sim's smirk widened. "Call it what you want." James placed a hand on Link's shoulder, guiding him a step back. The attorney's eyes flashed with subdued fury. "You'll be hearing from me soon, Officer Sims," he said quietly, in a tone that foreshadowed legal recourse. Sims merely shrugged. He scribbled the citation with a flourish, tore it off his pad, and thrust it at Link. "Have a nice day," Sims drawled, feigning politeness. Then he stepped back, motioning for Hernandez to wrap things up. She approached Link gently, apologizing with her eyes if not her words, and handed him back his license and registration. The day's injustice weighed heavily on Link's shoulders as he climbed into his truck. James followed suit, taking down Sims's badge number, date, and time. Behind them, the freelance photographer walked back to his own vehicle, sending a quick text to the local news desk about the footage he had just captured. Things could have ended there, a single unsettling incident. Link would contest the ticket, James would represent him, and perhaps the entire affair would be quietly swept under the rug. But destiny had other plans. Whispers of that roadside confrontation had already begun to travel, reaching people with far more power and influence than Officer Sims could ever imagine. The wheels of a much larger story were set in motion, one that involved not just the humiliation of an elderly black veteran, but the unraveling of a corrupt dynamic within the local precinct. With each mile Link drove, he was driving closer to an unthinkable tangle of conspiracies and revelations, each of which would lead to a crescendo even the calm and seasoned soldier could never have predicted. The next morning, Link woke with a heavy heart. His old hip ached, a not-so-subtle reminder of the passing years. He cast a glance at the citation for the broken taillight, lying on the kitchen table beside his half-eaten bagel. Despite his usual morning routine, fresh coffee, reading the local paper, and checking on the crocheted blankets his late wife had made, he couldn't shake the previous day's injustice. He dialed James Robertson. Though James tried to reassure him that they would handle everything legally, Link could hear the concern in his friend's voice. "I'll file an official complaint," James said. "But I have a feeling there's more to Officer Sims than meets the eye." Curiosity piqued, Link asked. "What do you mean?" James hesitated. "Just a rumor that he's had multiple complaints for misconduct before, but they somehow vanished. I'll do some digging." The thought that Sims might have harmed others, subjecting them to demeaning and unjust stops burned at Link's conscience. He decided to take the day slowly, heading downtown for lunch at Hyman's Seafood, a local Charleston favorite. He wanted to see if perhaps any of his friends or fellow veterans had heard about his encounter on the highway. Charleston's historic district bustled with tourists admiring Rainbow Row, snapping photos of old mansions, and soaking in the city's unique architecture. Meanwhile, at Hyman's Seafood, Link settled into a booth near the window. He exchanged pleasantries with a retired Marine named Claude, who occasionally joined him for a cup of she-crab soup. Halfway through their meal, Link's phone buzzed, displaying an unknown number. "Hello?" he answered quietly, stepping aside to avoid the restaurant's lunchtime chatter. An excited voice spilled through the line. "Mr. Whitaker, my name's Jerome Willis. I'm a reporter with Charleston Local News. We got footage yesterday of your run-in with Officer Sims. It's blowing up on social media. We'd like to interview you." Link's stomach twisted. He disliked the spotlight, but something told him that if he didn't speak out, the truth might get buried. "All right," he finally answered. "I'll consider it." Just then, the restaurant door swung open, and a group of officers walked in. Link froze, heart thumping. It wasn't that he feared every cop, but the memory of yesterday's humiliations was still fresh. One of the officers, a tall man with an imposing build, caught Link's eye and nodded curtly. It wasn't Sims. In fact, the man's badge read Captain Vaughn. He was rumored to be a fair-minded leader within the department, known for supporting community initiatives. Their gazes locked for a moment, and a flicker of recognition passed across Vaughn's face. But before he could speak, he got pulled aside by a phone call. Link returned to his seat, the looming sense that something big was brewing, growing ever stronger. After finishing his meal, he bid goodbye to Claude and headed out into the warm Charleston sun. Everywhere he looked, it seemed people were scrolling on their phones, capturing bits of daily life. The presence of cameras made him uneasy, yet also gave him a glimmer of hope. In a world increasingly connected by technology, he knew that shining a light on wrongdoing could be the key to ending it. Later that afternoon, James confirmed that local news outlets were indeed buzzing about the footage. The clip had begun circulating on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, racking up thousands of views. The big question everyone was asking: why would a police officer go out of his way to harass an elderly veteran? Local veterans groups were already outraged. The NAACP was expressing concern, and civil rights lawyers were contacting James with offers of assistance. Behind closed doors, a crisis was forming for the Charleston Police Department. The brass likely sensed that this single incident could trigger a closer look at long-standing problems that had festered beneath the surface for years. Officer Sims might find himself under the microscope soon enough, but the final chapters of this saga were still in the making. Link would soon discover that the roots of this conflict ran deeper than a mere ticket. Hidden alliances, questionable deals, and surprising connections would come to light, propelling the story into uncharted territory. And while Link possessed the calm of a seasoned soldier, even he was unprepared for the labyrinth of lies that awaited him. The day after local coverage broke, Link found his phone ringing incessantly. Neighbors and fellow veterans from the VFW hall were calling to check on him, outraged by the news segment that had aired the night before. One friend recounted how the footage showed Sims nearly pressing Link against his truck, eyes blazing with obvious hostility. That same friend told Link that phone lines at the police department were jammed with complaints. Meanwhile, James called with updates on the legal front. The Charleston PD is launching an internal investigation, he said. They've put Officer Sims on desk duty until further notice. Link allowed himself a small sigh of relief. Maybe the system would work as intended, yet he couldn't forget the bitterness in Sims' eyes, nor the subtle hints that the officer had some kind of shield protecting him from accountability. Early that afternoon, as Link sat down to write an official statement for the investigation, a firm knock sounded on his front door. Opening it, he was greeted by Captain Vaughn, the officer he had briefly seen at Hyman's Seafood. Dressed in a dark blue uniform, Vaughn appeared composed but concerned. "Mr. Whitaker," Vaughn began politely, "may I come in?" Link hesitated, then nodded. He guided the captain into his modest living room, its walls adorned with army memorabilia and family photographs. Vaughn studied the pictures discreetly, pausing at one photo showing a much younger Link being saluted by General Colin Powell during a commemorative event. The sight seemed to stir something in Vaughn's expression: respect, perhaps, or curiosity. "I came to express that our department takes this matter seriously," Vaughn said, sitting forward in his chair. "We value our veterans, and we don't condone the treatment you received." Link appreciated the courtesy, but maintained a cautious reserve. "I hope that's true, Captain. I've been around a while, and I've seen good officers and bad ones." Vaughn bowed his head. "Yes, sir, and I won't pretend we're perfect. But we want a thorough investigation. Officer Sims claims he had grounds to stop you, but from the footage I've seen, that was not the case. We want your version in an official capacity." Link handed him a typed account of the incident, his words succinct yet detailed. Vaughan read it silently, lips pressing tight as he took in each line. "Thank you," he said quietly, slipping the paper into a folder. "We'll include this in our internal affairs report." There was a moment of silence as Vaughan's gaze lingered on a folded American flag placed atop the mantel next to a picture of Link's late wife. "You served in Vietnam?" "Yes," Link answered, the memories rushing back. "My father did too," Vaughan said. "He died a decade ago, but I remember him talking about the men he fought with. He said they were the strongest brothers he ever knew. Pride and sadness mingled in Link's chest. We were a family. Still are." Vaughan nodded, then rose to his feet. "We'll get to the bottom of this," he promised. "In the meantime, I suggest you stay in touch with your attorney. If you need anything, here's my card." With that, the captain departed, leaving behind a quiet sense of hope and uncertainty. Link stood by the window, watching Vaughan drive off. Maybe this was the start of a resolution, or maybe it was just a face-saving gesture. Regardless, Link couldn't shake the feeling that something even bigger lurked beneath the surface. That night, his suspicions were confirmed in a way he never expected. At around 9 p.m., James called with a voice crackling with urgency. "Link, are you okay?" "Yes." "Why?" Link asked. "Heart pounding." "Someone threw a brick through my office window tonight," James blurted. "They left a note on it that said, 'Keep your nose out of police business, or else.'" A chill ran through Link. "You think it's about me?" "I don't know," James answered, "but it's too coincidental to ignore. I'm reporting it now." Long after the call ended, Link sat in the dark, the only light coming from a small lamp on the end table. The uneasy hush echoed the tumult of his thoughts. If someone was trying to intimidate James, it meant they wanted the story buried. The question was, who, and how far would they go to silence a retired soldier and his lawyer friend? A swirl of memories tugged at Link's mind, days in the jungles of Vietnam, nights where every rustle in the foliage could signal danger. He had learned to trust his instincts, and they now screamed at him that an unseen enemy was gathering in the shadows. The scariest part was not knowing whether that enemy was just one rogue officer or a more powerful force lurking within the city he loved. The cracks in the system had begun to show. The carefully constructed facade of law and order was flaking away, and the stench of corruption seeped through. Unwittingly, Link had become the focal point of an explosive conflict. He prayed that his old strength and the unwavering support of friends would be enough to face what lay ahead. Early the next morning, Link parked his Ford F-150 in front of the Charleston Police Department. The rising sun tinted the sky orange and pink, yet Link couldn't fully appreciate the beauty. His mind whirled with unease about James's safety and the possible entanglements that extended beyond Officer Sims. He squared his shoulders, adjusted his Vietnam veteran cap, and entered the precinct with measured steps, determined to show neither fear nor anger. Inside, the air was thick with anticipation. A few younger officers recognized Link from the news and watched him pass, curiosity etched on their faces. Some nodded politely, others avoided his gaze. Link found Captain Vaughan's office at the end of a narrow hallway. Vaughan stood as Link entered, greeting him with a firm handshake. "Morning, Mr. Whitaker," Vaughan said, gesturing to a chair. "Have you heard about last night's incident at Mr. Robertson's office?" Link nodded. "I have. Do you have any leads on who might have done it?" Vaughan's expression turned grave. "That's what I'm trying to figure out. Our resources are limited. Whoever did this was careful not to leave evidence behind." Link cleared his throat, frustration building. "Captain, James is only involved because he's representing me. We both suspect it's connected to Sims or someone close to him. Are you sure your internal affairs team is going to handle this properly?" "That's my hope." Vaughan answered. I want you to know not everyone in this department is like Sims. Most are hard-working men and women who truly want to protect and serve. Their conversation was interrupted by a knock on the door. Officer Hernandez appeared, looking tense. She'd changed into a crisp, neatly pressed uniform, and though she held her composure, her eyes revealed she was nervous. Sorry to interrupt, she said quietly, holding a folder. I have some documents you wanted, Captain. Vaughan motioned for her to come in. She handed him the folder. This is the complaint log for Officer Sims over the last 3 years, she explained. Link noticed her jaw tighten as she spoke. Vaughan's brows rose slightly as he flipped through the papers. There are quite a few, he murmured. I see multiple allegations of verbal abuse, racial slurs, wrongful stops, Hernandez continued, swallowing. And, surprisingly, none of them moved forward. An uneasy silence filled the office. Vaughan tapped his finger on the table. It's odd that all these complaints ended up dismissed. Link leaned forward. Someone's been protecting him. Hernandez nodded slowly. I suspect so. Vaughan closed the folder and exhaled. We might need to bring in a third party to look into this. It's bigger than I thought. A sudden burst of anger flared in Link. This man didn't just harass me. He's terrorizing others. Now my friend is being threatened for helping me. How far does this go? Hernandez placed a tentative hand on Link's shoulder, then withdrew it. I'm sorry for what you've endured. When I joined the force, I wanted to help people. But it's become clear that the system has cracks, maybe more than cracks. Her eyes glistened with sincerity. Vaughan nodded in agreement, his expression grim. I'll reach out to the mayor's office. Maybe we can arrange a formal inquiry involving the state police or even the FBI if necessary. A small spark of hope flickered in Link's chest. That might be our best chance. Thank you. As Link turned to leave, Vaughan called out to him, Be careful, Mr. Whitaker. We don't know who's pulling the strings. Link paused in the doorway. The fleeting sense of relief clashed with the acute awareness that powerful forces might be at work. I'm always careful, Captain. He touched the brim of his cap. Semper Fi, though that's a Marine motto, not Army. But the sentiment stands. He walked out, each step echoing with the realization that he was diving deeper into uncharted territory. While he had allies in Captain Vaughan and Officer Hernandez, there was also a dangerous undercurrent swirling through the department. The next move could come from anywhere: a crooked cop, a hidden puppet master, or someone else entirely. And in his gut, Link sensed the storm had only begun to gather. That afternoon, Link drove straight to James's office, determined to check on his friend. He spotted a boarded-up window at the front, an ugly reminder of the threatening message James had received. Parking the truck, he felt a pang of guilt. James was targeted simply because he was defending Link's rights. Inside, James was engrossed in conversation with a state police detective named Roderick Mills, a towering figure with salt and pepper hair, wearing a charcoal grey suit. His eyes narrowed as Link approached, taking the measure of the elderly veteran. James gestured for Link to join them. I've just been explaining the situation to Detective Mills. He's from the South Carolina Law Enforcement Division. Mills extended a hand. Mr. Whitaker, sorry to meet under such circumstances. Link nodded politely and sat. Thank you for looking into this. The detective's voice was calm but direct. Officer Sims is on our radar, but there seems to be more to his influence than a single officer could manage alone. I'd like to know if either of you suspect a larger conspiracy within the department. James sighed, casting a glance at the boarded-up window. We can't say for certain, but the pattern of dismissed complaints is suspicious. Mills jotted notes on a yellow legal pad. Charleston PD claims they're initiating their own inquiry. If they request assistance from SLED, we can launch a formal investigation. Let's hope it moves fast, Link said, voice edged with worry. People are getting bold, throwing bricks, leaving threats. Mills nodded. I'll do what I can. In the meantime, watch your backs. After the detective left, James sank into his chair, exhaustion weighing on him. Link studied his friend, noticing the tension in his posture, the dark circles under his eyes. You okay? He asked softly. James forced a smile. I'll manage. We're in this together. Link stood to leave, resting a hand on James's shoulder. Thank you, brother. I mean that. On his drive home, Link couldn't shake an eerie feeling. The calm Charleston streets passed by in a blur, palmetto trees swaying in the breeze. Yet he sensed invisible eyes watching. The day felt too still, like the hush before a thunderstorm unleashes its wrath. He decided to swing by his granddaughter's apartment. Tanya was a college student at the College of Charleston, balancing part-time work at a local bookstore. She was Link's pride and joy, one of the few family members he had left. When he arrived, Tanya greeted him with a warm hug, her curls bouncing around her shoulders. She led him inside. Grandpa, I saw the footage. Are you all right? The worry in her eyes twisted Link's heart. He nodded, hugging her close. I'm fine, sweetheart. Just some complications with a bad cop. Why do they have to treat you like that, after everything you've done? Her voice trembled. Link shook his head gently. I don't know. Some people are blinded by hate. All we can do is stand for what's right. Tanya poured him a cup of tea, and they talked quietly about safer subjects her classes, the upcoming local arts festival, how she hoped to become a journalist someday. Still, the undercurrent of tension marred their conversation. Every time a car door slammed outside, Link's senses prickled. He couldn't help but wonder if Sims or some unknown accomplice might be lurking. By the time he left Tanya's apartment, the sun was dipping beneath the horizon, painting the sky with violet and gold hues. Driving through the twilight, Link thought about the war he'd faced in the jungles of Southeast Asia. He remembered creeping through thick underbrush, uncertain if an enemy might lie just beyond the next clearing. This feels the same, he thought grimly. The difference now was that the battlefield was home, and the fight was for justice, not foreign soil. Little did Link know, forces were already aligning themselves to strike with brutal efficiency. The seeds of confrontation had taken root, and soon they would sprout into a full-blown crisis, one that would place Link, Tanya, James, and even members of the police department in grave danger. All it would take was a single spark to unleash that storm. 3 days later, the spark ignited. It was early evening when Link decided to drive out to Sullivan's Island for a brief walk along the shore. The ocean had always provided solace, reminding him of nature's vastness and his own small place within it. A gentle breeze rustled his cap, and the rhythmic pounding of the surf calmed his nerves. He was strolling along the sand, footprints trailing behind him, when his phone vibrated incessantly in his pocket. He glanced at the screen to see James's name, but the call cut off almost immediately. A few seconds later, a text from James arrived. Emergency. Call me ASAP. A jolt of adrenaline coursed through Link as he dialed James's number. After several tense rings, James picked up, voice shaking. Link, someone just tried to break into my house. They must have known about the security cameras. They fled when the alarm went off. Link's blood ran cold. Are you safe? Where are you? I'm at the house now, but the police are on their way, James replied, breath ragged. They left something behind, a threatening note. This time it mentioned you by name. Fear mingled with anger in Link's chest. Stay put, I'm coming. He raced back to his truck, ignoring the ache in his hip. As he sped off toward James's home, thoughts clamored in his mind. Who would be brazen enough to attempt a break-in at a lawyer's house? It had to be connected to the case Sims, or someone else high up wanting them both silenced. When Link arrived, patrol cars already lined the curb, their blue and red lights painting flickering patterns on the suburban houses. A cluster of neighbors stood on lawns, whispering in hushed tones. Link pushed past them, limping toward the front door, where he saw Captain Vaughan and Officer Hernandez talking to a visibly shaken James. Vaughan looked up sharply when Link approached. "Mr. Whitaker, we've got this under control. Just let us handle it," Vaughan said. "What's the note say?" Link demanded, voice thick with urgency. James handed him a folded piece of paper enclosed in a plastic evidence bag. The message inside was scrawled in angry red letters. "Whitaker can't hide behind you forever. Drop the complaint or pay the price." Link's hand trembled as he read it. Memories flooded back of the threats sometimes made by the Viet Cong, scrawled on propaganda leaflets. But this was home, and the enemy was unknown, hidden behind a police badge or some shadowy connection. Vaughan tried to steady him. "We'll do everything possible to find out who did this." Officer Hernandez nodded, her brow furrowed in concern. "We believe this could be the same party who vandalized your office window. Now they're escalating." James sank into a chair on the porch, running a hand through his hair. "I don't understand why they're going to such length. Can't they see this will only bring more scrutiny?" Vaughan pursed his lips. "Sometimes people in positions of power double down when threatened, especially if they think they can frighten you into backing off. We're dealing with someone desperate to keep something hidden." Just then, Detective Mills from the state police arrived, a grim expression etched on his face. "I'm coordinating with Captain Vaughan. We'll have to keep this as quiet as possible. If the suspect hears we're onto them, they might vanish." James looked up at the detective. "Quiet? The media's already running with the story." "True, but we're not revealing operational details," Mills clarified. "With any luck, they'll slip up." Link studied the uniformed officers combing the perimeter of James's house, searching for clues. The entire situation felt surreal. Anxiety clawed at him. He was an old man, but the soldier in him was ready for battle. "What's our next move?" Mills looked at Vaughan, who nodded for him to continue. "Keep doing what you're doing, cooperate with the investigation, but watch your back. If possible, stay together or have someone nearby. We don't know when the next strike might come." Link's stomach churned. He glanced at James, whose usually calm demeanor was fraying. They were both stepping onto a minefield, and each step could trigger catastrophe. What if Tanya is in danger? The thought spiraled into Link's mind, setting alarm bells ringing. He vowed to himself that if any threat loomed over his granddaughter, he'd stop at nothing to protect her. They were no longer just dealing with one crooked cop. This felt bigger, a web of corruption, possibly weaving through the police department, targeting an elderly veteran and his lawyer friend for daring to seek justice. As if to confirm this suspicion, Link noticed Vaughan's cell phone buzzing. The captain turned away to speak quietly, concern etching deeper lines in his face. Whatever was said seemed to unsettle him. A sense of foreboding coursed through Link. The unseen villain was turning up the pressure, hoping to force them into retreat. But Link Whitaker had never run from a fight in his life, and he wouldn't start now. The only question was how many innocent lives would be upended before the final truth came to light. By dawn the next day, the Charleston media was ablaze with the latest developments. Local television stations ran special segments detailing the attempted break-in at James's home, linking it to the humiliating traffic stop footage that had gone viral. Commentators debated whether the police department was harboring a dangerous element within its ranks. The situation had escalated into a full-blown scandal, with community activists calling for immediate action. Meanwhile, Link found himself holed up at James's office window, still boarded, but security beefed up reviewing documents relating to Officer Sims. He discovered that, beyond the dismissed complaints, there were subtle financial transactions traced to a now defunct security firm. The pattern suggested that hush money had been paid to certain complainants leading them to withdraw their allegations. A swirl of dread filled Link's stomach, who within the department was funding such efforts. James, pacing back and forth, stopped when Link pointed out the suspicious financials. "This is enough to warrant an audit," James murmured. "If we share this with the right people, it might blow the cover on whoever's protecting Sims." Before they could act, Link's phone pinged with a message from Tanya. "Hey Grandpa, I'm fine, but I got a call from a blocked number telling me to warn you to drop your complaint. They said they know where I live." Rage flashed through Link like a lightning bolt. His chest tightened. "James," he said, showing him the text, "they're threatening my granddaughter now." James's jaw clenched. "We've got to get her somewhere safe." Without a second thought, Link drove straight to Tanya's apartment. Upon arrival, he found her trembling, trying to keep a brave face. She hugged him fiercely, refusing to let go. "I'm not afraid for myself," she whispered, voice quivering. "I'm afraid for you." Link swallowed hard, emotion swirling in his throat. "I'm okay, sweetheart. We just need to get you out of harm's way." He made a few calls and arranged for Tanya to stay with a trusted family friend in a quieter area on John's Island. Together, they packed a small suitcase of essentials. Link felt a pang of guilt uprooting her life, but he had no choice. As they pulled away from her apartment, Link's eyes flicked to the rear-view mirror. A black SUV idled nearby. Something about it unsettled him. It seemed to mirror his turns, lingering just a block or two behind. When Link slowed, the SUV slowed. When Link accelerated, it kept pace. A cold sweat broke across his forehead. "Tanya," he said softly, trying to keep his voice steady. "Stay calm." "I think we're being followed." Her eyes widened, but she nodded. Link made a sudden right turn onto a side street, then another sharp left, navigating a labyrinth of narrow roads. The SUV followed, though it kept a cautious distance. Link's heart pounded in his ears. He had grown adept at evasive maneuvers during convoys in Vietnam, but those skills felt distant and dusty. Finally, he spotted a well-lit gas station and pulled in, hoping to create a public space that might deter any open confrontation. The SUV coasted by, tinted windows masking whoever was inside. Link felt the tension in his muscles ease fractionally. He was certain, though, that they had been watched. He escorted Tanya inside the gas station, its fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. They pretended to browse the snacks for a moment. "Do you think we lost them?" she asked, voice shaking. "For now," Link replied, "but we can't be sure." They waited a few minutes before continuing to John's Island. Once Tanya was settled at his friend's place, a sturdy home with a security system and a big dog in the yard, Link breathed a tentative sigh of relief. He hugged Tanya goodbye, promising to keep her updated. Driving away alone, he couldn't help but feel as if a vise were tightening around him, each new threat compressing his freedom. This was no simple matter of a single racist cop. It was a system twisted from within by those willing to use intimidation, violence, and corruption to keep their secrets buried. Yet every new threat only fueled Link's resolve. He thought about the men he'd served with, the sacrifices they'd made for ideals like justice and equality. He remembered the morning salutes at dawn, the bitter nights in foxholes, and the unwavering loyalty that had carried them through the darkest times. He resolved to keep fighting, not just for himself but for Tanya, for James, and for everyone who believed in a country where no one should be oppressed by those sworn to protect them. Night fell with a suffocating stillness, as though the whole city held its breath in anticipation. Link was back in his small home, double-checking the locks on his doors and windows. Though exhaustion weighed heavily on him, he couldn't bring himself to sleep. Too many thoughts warred in his mind: Tanya's safety, James's vulnerability, and the looming spectre of corruption within the department. Finally, around midnight, he dozed off on the couch, cane resting against the armrest. His dreams were jumbled fragments of war memories and the chilling image of a black SUV following him. The ring of his phone jerked him awake, heart pounding. Fumbling for it, he saw an unknown number on the screen. He answered warily. A voice rasped on the other end. "Heard you've been making waves, old man. Might want to stand down before things get ugly." Link's breath caught. "Who is this?" he demanded, fury and fear colliding. The caller chuckled, low and menacing. "A friend. Consider this your final warning." The line went dead. For a moment, Link sat in stunned silence, phone clenched in his fist. Then he sprang into action. He dialed James, voice quivering with adrenaline. "They just called me." James cursed under his breath. "I've had 3 blocked calls tonight, but they hung up before saying anything. I've already told the detective." Link's mind spun. "We can't just wait for them to act again. We have to do something." James hesitated. "We have that financial info linking Sims to hush money. The local press might publish it. It could blow this thing wide open, maybe force the higher-ups to come clean." "Then let's do it," Link snapped. "I'm tired of cowering." They agreed to meet at James's office the next morning to finalize the disclosures. Neither man slept well. A sense of imminent danger gnawed at them both like a relentless predator. When dawn broke, Link drove across town, scanning his mirrors for any sign of that black SUV. The morning sun cast harsh shadows on the streets, a mirrored reflection of the moral darkness overshadowing the city. He arrived at James's office to find the lawyer already hunched over his desk, drafting an email to a local investigative reporter at the Post and Courier. "This reporter's name is Monica Draper," James explained. "She's known for breaking big stories, and she isn't easily intimidated." Link nodded. "Good. Let's hope she's willing to run with it." James hit send. They shared a quiet, determined glance. There was no turning back. Whatever came next would be the result of their choice to shine a light on the corruption. Link felt a flood of relief, followed by the cold realization that those who threatened them might now escalate their tactics. An hour later, James's phone rang. It was Monica Draper, brimming with excitement. She confirmed receipt of the documents and said she would begin investigating immediately. "This looks explosive," she told them. "Give me a day or two to verify, and I'll break the story." After the call, Link exhaled a tremulous breath. He recalled the motto from basic training: adapt, overcome, and persevere. They had taken a bold step. Now, all they could do was brace for the fallout, and fallout came sooner than they expected. That afternoon, James spotted a large black SUV parked across the street, tinted windows concealing whoever sat inside. The occupant made no effort to hide, as though brazenly announcing their presence. Link took a photo of the vehicle's license plate, but it was partially obscured by mud, a deliberate tactic, perhaps. Rather than confront them directly, James called Detective Mills, who promised to send an unmarked car to investigate. But an hour later, the SUV was gone, leaving behind only tire tracks in the gravel. It was a chilling reminder. They were under constant surveillance by someone who played by their own rules. By the day's end, Link could practically feel the tension thrumming in the air. The lines had been drawn. In the face of intimidation, they had chosen to speak out. Now, only time would reveal whether their stand for justice would prevail or whether they would be crushed by a system determined to protect one of its own. And as night approached, Link's every instinct told him the climax of this ordeal was near, and it would not be gentle. The next few days brought a flurry of developments. Monica Draper's investigation moved swiftly. She had cross-referenced the financial transactions with internal police records, verifying that multiple complainants against Officer Sims had inexplicably withdrawn their statements within days of depositing large sums into their bank accounts. Adding to the intrigue, Those sums traced back to shell companies connected to a local businessman, rumored to have ties within the police department, Raymond Ray Halcombe, a man with a reputation for bending rules to expand his real estate empire. On a Thursday afternoon, Monica published her expose. Under a bold headline reading "Officer Sims linked to hush money scandal, possible police corruption," the article detailed the evidence Link and James had provided. The piece went viral across Charleston social media, fueling public outcry. Within hours, local news stations knocked on James's door, asking for comments, and Link's phone blew up with calls from veterans, activists, and everyday citizens alike. Captain Vaughan held a tense press conference that evening, announcing an expanded internal affairs probe. Flanked by the mayor and Detective Mills, Vaughan assured the public that Officer Sims had been suspended pending the investigation. However, the looming question remained: who else was involved in bribing victims to withdraw complaints? And why had the department's upper ranks turned a blind eye until now? In the days that followed, a swelling wave of support rose for Link. Strangers offered words of encouragement, praising him for standing up. Veterans organizations rallied in front of City Hall, demanding accountability. Meanwhile, James received a flood of threatening emails, some anonymous, others brazen enough to bear the sender's real name. Despite the public attention, the sense of danger persisted. The black SUV lingered near James's office or Link's home from time to time, retreating whenever unmarked police cars approached. One Friday evening, Link and James found themselves in Vaughan's office once more, alongside Officer Hernandez and Detective Mills. The air felt heavy with urgency. Vaughan began. "We've uncovered new information. Financial records show that Ray Halcombe has donated heavily to certain police charities and political campaigns. He may be influencing some of our higher-ups to let Sims run roughshod." Hernandez shuffled a stack of papers. "We also discovered that several commanding officers quietly dismissed the Sims complaints. It's possible Halcombe or his affiliates are bribing them, but we need solid proof." James leaned forward, brow furrowed. "Halcombe's name has come up in local land deals. Rumor is he uses scare tactics to drive out homeowners so he can buy properties cheap. Maybe Sims was part of that intimidation force." Vaughan nodded grimly. "It fits the pattern." Mills cleared his throat. "We've set up a sting operation to catch whoever might be funneling money to buy silence. We believe if we track these new transfers, we can trace them back to the source. But we'll need your help to lure them out." Link's pulse quickened. "What do you need from us?" Mills exchanged glances with Vaughan. "We want you, Mr. Whitaker, to contact Sims directly. Tell him you're ready to drop the complaint on the condition that he arranges a meeting to pay you off. If he takes the bait, we can intercept him." A flash of apprehension crossed James's face. "That's risky. What if Sims suspects a trap? He's already threatened Link's life." Vaughan's jaw tightened. "We'll be watching closely. Officers we trust, myself, Hernandez. Some from the state police will be stationed nearby. We'll wire you up. The hope is that Sims or his backer will incriminate themselves on tape." Link took a moment to weigh the idea. Fear clutched his gut, but he also recognized the potential to end this. He recalled the men who had stood beside him in combat, risking everything for each other. Now, in a different war, he felt a similar sense of duty. "I'll do it," he said quietly. "If it'll stop this corruption, I'm in." James looked uneasy, but didn't argue. The plan was set in motion. That night, Link dialed the number he had for Officer Sims obtained from old police paperwork and left a cryptic voicemail. "We need to talk about the complaint. I might be willing to reconsider if I get something in return." Less than an hour later, his phone lit up. A text from Sims. Name the time and place. Link's heart hammered as he read it aloud to James. The words felt like a coiled snake, promising danger. Nonetheless, he replied as instructed by Mills, suggesting a secluded parking lot near the edge of town, commonly used after hours by truckers. A tense day passed without further contact. Then, suddenly, Sims confirmed, tomorrow at 9 p.m. Don't be late. The stage was set. The next 24 hours were a blur of preparations. Detective Mills, Captain Vaughan, Officer Hernandez, and a cadre of state police meticulously planned their positions. Link would wear a small recording device pinned beneath his shirt collar. Once Sims arrived and initiated a conversation about hush money, the waiting officers would move in. As dusk settled on Charleston, Link found himself parked in the deserted lot, headlights illuminating broken pavement and a lone street lamp flickering overhead. The wide sky stretched above him, streaked with the dying light of day. He felt a familiar knot in his stomach, akin to the tension he'd felt during covert missions in Vietnam. Despite his age, the old soldier in him stirred, ready to face whatever might unfold. Hidden a few hundred yards away, James sat in an unmarked car with Detective Mills, eyes glued to the scene. Officer Hernandez perched nearby, blending into the darkness, while Vaughan coordinated from another vantage point. Everyone held their breath, awaiting the arrival of a man who had tormented an elderly veteran without knowing who he truly was, a man who had unwittingly picked a fight with not just a decorated soldier, but an entire community hungry for justice. The clock crept toward 9 p.m., every passing second thick with anticipation. Link reached into his pocket for the photograph of his granddaughter, a small token of courage. If things went according to plan, by this time tomorrow, the threat overshadowing them all might finally be subdued. But if anything went awry, Link knew the cost could be dire. Thank you for joining us on this riveting journey of courage, resilience, and moral reckoning. We've followed Lincoln Whitaker, a humble yet fiercely brave veteran, as he battled prejudice, threats, and concealed corruption, proving that perseverance and unity can topple even the most entrenched injustice. We hope this story inspires you to stand firm in the face of adversity and remember that every act of courage can ignite a spark for change. If you found yourself on the edge of your seat, please take a moment to like this video, share it with friends, and subscribe to our channel. By doing so, you help us continue bringing important, impactful stories that resonate and enlighten us all.